Fresh wasn't just a movie. It was about a boy escaping a brutal system. But once the film ended, the real tragedy quietly began for many of its cast. Some vanished after a single role, others saw their careers collapse years later. Stay tuned as we uncover where the Fresh cast is now in 2026. Shawn Nelson as Fresh. Shawn Nelson was born on May 9, 1980, in the Bronx, New York. At just 14 years old, he played Michael Fresh, the chess-minded boy trapped between drug lords, in Fresh, 1994. The role was the emotional and moral spine of the film, permanently defining how the industry would see Shawn Nelson. Behind those scenes, his adulthood was marked by professional instability. After the critical triumph of Fresh, Hollywood struggled to place him. Strong work followed. American Buffalo, 1996, alongside Dustin Hoffman and The Wood, 1999, yet none translated into sustained momentum, leaving him in a cycle of praise without permanence. Carrying a role built on fear, manipulation, and premature adulthood left scars that did not fade with age. Projects like HBO's The Corner, 2000, demanded further emotional excavation, reinforcing a pattern where Nelson was trusted with pain but rarely rewarded with longevity. Later, Nelson continued working quietly, choosing independence over exposure. He appeared intermittently on television in shows such as Law and Order, Elementary, and Blue Bloods, while shifting energy toward independent film and behind-the-camera work. These choices reflected survival rather than ambition. Today, Shawn Nelson is 46 years old, still active but deliberately low profile, focused on independent projects rather than mainstream stardom. His estimated net worth of around $500,000 mirrors a career shaped by early brilliance and long endurance. Samuel L. Jackson, as Sam. Samuel L. Jackson was born on December 21, 1948, in Washington, D.C. At 46 years old, he played Sam, the disciplined chess mentor and moral compass in Fresh, 1994. The role framed the film's philosophy, strategy over impulse, and echoed Jackson's own fight for control. It quietly anchored both the story and Jackson's transition into his most defining era. Marriage became both refuge and pressure. Jackson's long union with LaTanya Richardson endured relentless strain from addiction, fame, and overwork, pushing them close to separation at times. During the same period, he was delivering career-defining performances in Pulp Fiction, 1994, and A Time to Kill, 1996. The emotional cost of keeping family intact often unfolded away from cameras, where success offered no protection. Illness and addiction were inseparable from his professional survival. Years of cocaine and alcohol abuse nearly erased his career before rehabilitation intervened, leaving lasting health consequences including high blood pressure and cardiovascular risk. Films like Jungle Fever and later Coach Carter, 2005, carried added weight, each performance doubling as proof that relapse had not won. Later, Jackson worked at a pace few actors could sustain, turning survival into dominance. He carried blockbuster responsibility in Star Wars as Mace Windu and reshaped pop culture as Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while still returning to character-driven work such as The Hateful Eight and Broadway's The Piano Lesson. Now, Samuel L. Jackson is 78 years old, still active, producing and acting with undiminished presence. His estimated net worth of around $250 million stands as the financial outcome of resilience rather than ease. Yet among franchises and fortune, Fresh remains one of his quietest and most revealing roles. Ron Bryce as Corky. Ron Bryce was born around 1960 in the United States. At approximately 34 years old, he played Corky, the paranoid and volatile drug boss in Fresh, 1994. Corky was not a flashy kingpin, but a man unraveling from fear, suspicion, and control, adding a layer of raw psychological danger to the film. That performance etched Ron Bryce into the film's memory, but quietly set the limits of how the industry would later use him. After Fresh, Bryce found himself locked into the margins of television and film. He appeared in respected franchises like Law and Order and Law and Order SVU, roles that carried prestige but little stability. Each appearance kept his face familiar while his footing remained uncertain, forcing him to chase short-term contracts instead of long arcs. Recognition came without leverage, and leverage is what keeps careers alive. As years passed, the strain of supporting roles compounded, playing characters defined by paranoia and menace. The tension he once portrayed on screen began to mirror real-life pressure, long gaps between roles, inconsistent income, and the quiet frustration of being overlooked while younger faces cycled in and out of opportunity. In later years, Bryce gravitated toward independent projects where control replaced exposure. Films such as Pound Cake, 2023, and A Good Thing, Treasures of Life, 2023, marked a return not to fame, but to purpose. These performances reflected a veteran actor choosing persistence over disappearance, accepting smaller platforms in exchange for creative survival. In 2026, Ron Bryce is approximately 66 years old, still appearing occasionally in film, carrying forward without spectacle. His estimated net worth of around $1 million reflects decades of work built on endurance rather than breakthrough success. Jean-Claude La Marre as Jake. Jean-Claude La Marre was born on October 10, 1965, in Brooklyn, New York. At 29 years old, he played Jake in Fresh, 1994, following his early exposure in Malcolm X, 1992. Jake functioned as part of the street infrastructure surrounding Fresh, grounding the film's world in lived-in realism rather than exaggeration. The role positioned La Marre as an actor aligned with socially conscious cinema. Following Fresh, La Marre's acting career continued through films like Dead Presidents, 1995, and guest roles on New York Undercover, Law and Order, and NYPD Blue. Yet acting alone offered limited control, pushing him toward directing and producing as a means of survival and self-definition. This pivot carried risk, trading visibility for authority at a time when independent black filmmakers faced shrinking support. That risk intensified with Color of the Cross, 2006, a film that reimagined Jesus as a black man and framed his persecution through racial violence. The project ignited controversy, criticism, and distribution challenges, placing La Marre under financial and ideological pressure. Instead of launching a new chapter, the film isolated him within an industry uneasy with confrontation. Undeterred, La Marre doubled down on volume and ownership. Through New Light Media Group, he released dozens of independent films, directing and producing projects like Gang of Roses, Chocolate City, and Kinky. The workload was relentless, driven by necessity. Each project a calculated attempt to remain solvent, visible, and relevant in an unforgiving marketplace. In 2026, Jean-Claude La Marre is 61 years old, working primarily behind the camera as a director and producer. His estimated net worth of around $4 million reflects recovery forged through persistence rather than comfort. Giancarlo Esposito as Esteban. Giancarlo Esposito was born on April 26, 1958, in Copenhagen, Denmark. At 36 years old, he played Esteban, a cold, calculating drug boss in Fresh, 1994. Esteban was not explosive or theatrical. He represented systemic power, quiet control, and the invisible cage surrounding the young protagonist. The role strengthened Esposito's image as an actor who could project menace through intelligence rather than violence. In real life, marriage added pressure rather than balance. After marrying Joy McManigal in 1990 and raising 4 daughters, Esposito spent the late 1990s and early 2000s juggling constant auditions, uneven paychecks, and supporting roles that offered prestige without security. Films like The Usual Suspects and Ali kept him visible, but never financially stable, turning professional persistence into domestic strain that slowly fractured the family and culminated in divorce in 2015. As the industry shifted, financial anxiety deepened. By 2008, years of inconsistent income and failed investments collapsed into bankruptcy, forcing Esposito to confront the reality that steady work did not equal stability. The psychological toll became overwhelming, pushing him into a period of depression so severe that survival itself became uncertain, a private crisis unfolding while his face still appeared on screens. Career recovery demanded emotional sacrifice. Esposito leaned into morally complex antagonists, channeling personal fear into precision performances. Breaking Bad and better. Call Saul transformed him into Gus Fring, a character built on restraint, patience, and suppressed violence. In 2026, Giancarlo Esposito is 68 years old, still working relentlessly across film, television, and voice acting, with roles in The Mandalorian, The Boys, and major franchises defining his late career. His estimated net worth of around $4 million reflects recovery earned through endurance. N. Bush Wright. As Nicole N. Bush Wright was born on September 7, 1969, in Brooklyn, New York. At 24 years old, she played Nicole, the drug-addicted older sister in Fresh, 1994. Nicole embodied the emotional fallout of addiction, transforming the film's violence into personal tragedy. The performance earned critical respect and positioned Wright as an actress capable of confronting pain without spectacle. Career momentum, however, proved fragile. Following Fresh, Wright delivered powerful work in Zebrahead, Dead Presidents, 1995, and Blade, 1998. Yet the industry's appetite for complex black female roles diminished rapidly. Opportunities narrowed, leaving her navigating a professional landscape where talent was praised but rarely invested in, forcing her into guest roles rather than sustained arcs. Personal loss compounded professional frustration. The death of her mother after decades of marriage, followed by the murder of her father in 2011, reshaped her emotional world. Grief did not pause for career rebuilding. It overlapped with diminishing roles, deepening a sense of isolation that extended beyond the screen and into everyday survival. In the years that followed, Wright chose continuity over visibility. She appeared in series such as Homicide, Life on the Street, Third Watch, and Chappelle's Show, while committing herself to dance, literacy advocacy, and community work. These efforts reflected an artist refusing disappearance, even as mainstream recognition remained out of reach. In 2026, N. Bush Wright is 56 years old, respected within cultural and artistic circles for integrity rather than fame. Her estimated net worth of around $1 million stands as a measure of endurance. Jose Zuniga as Lieutenant Perez. Jose Zuniga was born on April 1, 1965, in Honduras. At 29 years old, he played Lieutenant Perez, a police officer in Fresh, 1994. The role placed him on the edge of the story's moral divide, representing law enforcement caught between duty and a collapsing urban reality. Though brief, the performance marked one of his earliest appearances in serious, socially grounded cinema and quietly shaped the trajectory of his career. Professional life quickly became a cycle of visibility without elevation. After appearing in Alive, 1993, and later Crooklyn, 1994, Zuniga found steady work in crime-driven television, especially in franchises like Law and Order. Yet these roles remained supporting by design, creating long stretches of employment that never translated into creative control or leading man security. The repetition offered income, but rarely peace of mind. The strain was not explosive, but cumulative. Years of playing authority figures on the margins, detectives, officers, officials, produced a career defined by reliability rather than recognition. Each new audition reinforced the same ceiling, where consistency replaced ambition and professional stability remained just out of reach. fueling quiet anxiety about longevity in an industry that rarely pauses for patience. Last year, Zuniga continued to anchor television ensembles, appearing across network dramas and crime series that depended on his grounded presence. He balanced this workload with family life, choosing sustainability over reinvention, even as larger opportunities continued to pass him by. In 2026, Jose Zuniga is 61 years old, still active in television and character-driven projects. His estimated net worth of around $3 million reflects decades of steady employment rather than breakthrough success. A career built on endurance, professionalism, and the quiet cost of always being essential, but rarely central. Cheryl Freeman as Aunt Frances. Cheryl Freeman was born around 1960 in Washington, D.C. At approximately 34 years old, she played Aunt Frances, the gentle moral anchor in Fresh, 1994. Her character embodied warmth, stability, and the fragile hope of family within a harsh environment. Though understated, the role connected Freeman's theatrical sensitivity to a film rooted in emotional realism. Career tension emerged from transition. Freeman built her foundation on stage, achieving recognition as the original Acid Queen in Broadway's The Who's Tommy and commanding attention through powerful vocal performances. Moving between theater and film proved financially and creatively unstable, with screen roles in Dead Presidents, 1995, and voice work in Hercules, 1997, offering prestige without consistency. The struggle lay in scale rather than talent. While theater rewarded her skill and discipline, film and television offered smaller parts that rarely matched her range. The uneven income of stage work, combined with limited screen visibility, created periods of financial pressure, forcing Freeman to juggle performances, teaching, and voice work to maintain balance. Later, Freeman returned repeatedly to the stage, where control and respect outweighed exposure. She continued performing in theater productions while accepting selective film and television roles, choosing artistic fulfillment over chasing an industry that had never fully embraced her. In 2026, Cheryl Freeman is approximately 66 years old, still deeply rooted in theater and performance. Her estimated net worth of around $1.5 million reflects a career sustained by versatility and resilience, a life devoted to craft, marked by struggle, and carried forward by voice rather than spotlight. Elizabeth Rodriguez as Consuela. Elizabeth Rodriguez was born on December 27, 1980, in New York City. At 14 years old, she played Consuela in Fresh, 1994, a small but striking early role that marked her on-screen debut. Though brief, the performance placed her inside a raw, unforgiving cinematic world and quietly introduced her to an industry that would test her patience for decades. Fresh also placed her on a long, uneven road where nothing would come easily. Her earliest years in the profession were defined by marginal visibility. After Fresh, Rodriguez appeared in films such as Dead Presidents, 1995, I Think I Do, 1997, and later Blow, 2001, while cycling through relentless guest roles on television: Law & Order, Oz, NYPD Blue, ER, The Shield. The work was constant but rarely transformative, creating a grinding tension between effort and recognition, where talent was evident but opportunity remained just out of reach. For years, Rodriguez balanced financial insecurity with artistic ambition, supplementing screen work by returning repeatedly to theater. Broadway and off-Broadway became both refuge and proving ground, culminating in her explosive performance in Stephen Adly Gurgie's The Motherfucker with the Hat, 2011. The Tony nomination and major theater awards validated her craft, but arrived after years of feeling unseen by mainstream Hollywood. Even after acclaim, the pressure did not disappear. Television success finally arrived with Orange is the New Black, 2013 to 2019, where her portrayal of Aleida Diaz demanded emotional endurance across multiple seasons, exposing cycles of incarceration, motherhood, and survival. Parallel roles in Power, Prime Suspect, Fear the Walking Dead, and East New York kept her working relentlessly, often carrying emotionally punishing material that blurred the line between performance and personal exhaustion. In 2026, Elizabeth Rodriguez is 46 years old, actively balancing acting, writing, and producing, having co-written and starred in All's Well in New York while maintaining a strong presence in television and theater. Her estimated net worth of around $3 million reflects a career built through persistence rather than privilege. Charles Malik Whitfield as Smokey. Charles Malik Whitfield was born on August 1, 1972 in the Bronx, New York. At 22 years old, he made his film debut as Smokey in Fresh, 1994. The role placed him inside a brutal street ecosystem, reflecting temptation, volatility, and the thin line between survival and destruction. For Whitfield, Fresh was not just an entry point into acting. It was an echo of choices he had narrowly escaped in real life. Before his acting career stabilized, Whitfield's life was already marked by extreme pressure. As a teenager, he had been drawn into drug dealing, becoming financially successful far too young, then facing arrest and the collapse of that false sense of power. Entering Hollywood with that past meant carrying a double burden, proving himself worthy of opportunity while outrunning a reputation he never wanted to return to. Early television work like One Life to Live helped him stay afloat, but security remained fragile. Later, balancing auditions, short-term contracts, and the responsibility of raising two sons kept his career choices cautious rather than explosive. Even after acclaim for portraying Otis Williams in The Temptations, 1998, a role that earned him an NAACP Image Award nomination, Hollywood still hesitated to offer consistent leading man status. Work became discipline. Whitfield built a career on endurance, appearing in series such as The Guardian, Supernatural, If Loving You Is Wrong, American Horror Story, Empire, and Chicago Med. Each role reinforced reliability, but rarely delivered the breakthrough that might erase his earlier instability. Acting became less about ascent and more about maintaining distance from the life he had left behind. In 2026, Charles Malik Whitfield is 54 years old, still acting steadily across television and streaming projects, including Beauty in Black, 2024. His estimated net worth of around $1 million reflects survival rather than excess, a career rebuilt from a dangerous past, held together by restraint, responsibility, and the refusal to repeat old mistakes. Davenia McFadden as Mrs. Coleman. Davenia McFadden was born on February 21, 1961, in Abbeville, South Carolina. At 33 years old, she played Mrs. Coleman, a school teacher in Fresh, 1994. The character represented education and moral order standing helplessly against a violent environment. Though limited in screen time, the role reflected McFadden's recurring place in cinema as a stabilizing presence rather than the center of the story. Her career unfolded through volume rather than spotlight. From early film appearances like Remo Williams, the adventure begins to later work in Double Jeopardy, 1999. McFadden became a familiar face across Hollywood without ever becoming a marquee name. Television offered consistency. Grey's Anatomy, Law and Order, CSY, Chicago Med. But these were supporting roles that demanded constant availability with little long-term security. Marriage offered emotional grounding but did not shield her from professional strain. Raising a family while navigating an industry that rarely rewards mid-career actresses with leading roles required relentless flexibility. Financial pressure ebbed and flowed, tied closely to booking cycles, forcing her to accept roles based on stability rather than creative fulfillment. Still, McFadden worked without pause. By the 2000s, her resume had surpassed 100 screen appearances, a testament to dependability rather than fame. Each role reinforced her reputation as an actor producers could trust, even as the absence of a defining lead role quietly weighed on her career narrative. In 2026, Davenia McFadden is 65 years old, continuing to work in television, film, and producing. Her estimated net worth of around $2 million reflects decades of persistence in an industry that often overlooks longevity. Luis Lantigua, as Chucky Luis Lantigua, was born around 1980 in the United States. At approximately 14 years old, he played Chucky, Fresh's innocent and wide-eyed best friend, in Fresh, 1994. Chucky represented loyalty, childhood, and moral innocence inside a world dominated by fear and calculation. Though the role was quiet, it became one of the film's most human elements and the defining moment of Lantigua's brief acting career. After Fresh, Lantigua appeared only sparingly on screen, including a small role in the long-running crime series Law and Order. Unlike many young actors who aggressively pursued auditions, he did not remain in the industry long enough to build momentum. The lack of follow-up roles meant that what should have been a beginning quickly turned into an ending, leaving his early promise suspended rather than fulfilled. The emotional difficulty came not from public failure, but from private absence. As Fresh gained cult status and continued to be discussed years later, Lantigua's name remained tied to a film he never followed up with additional work. Watching former co-stars continue acting while his own path diverged created a silent tension. In adulthood, he chose distance over reinvention. While some former child actors returned through independent films or nostalgic appearances, Lantigua remained off-screen, allowing Fresh and his brief television work to stand as his only public record. His contribution exists in still frames rather than evolving credits, preserved by the film's lasting reputation. In 2026, Luis Lantigua is approximately 46 years old, living a private life away from the entertainment industry. His estimated net worth of around $200,000 reflects a career defined by two visible credits, Fresh and Law and Order, and the emotional weight of a talent remembered for what it was, not for what it became. More than 3 decades after Fresh, 1994 shocked audiences with its quiet brutality and heartbreaking realism, its cast now stands as a living reminder of how one film can change lives in very different ways. Some found redemption, some carried invisible scars, and others quietly disappeared from the spotlight. Yet every performance still echoes whenever the film is rediscovered by a new generation. So now we ask you, which cast member's journey surprised you the most? And whose story do you think deserved a very different ending? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you care about untold stories, forgotten careers, and the real human cost behind classic films, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Then and Now deep dive.